Gonna go for two here.
He's going for two.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it. That's just a heavy play.
Gonna go for two here. Go for two here.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it.
Gonna go for two here. Go for two here. If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win. Gonna go for two here. Go for two here.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it.
Go for two here. If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win. Gonna go for two here.
He's going for two.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it. That's just a heavy play.
Gonna go for two here. Go for two here.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it.
Gonna go for two here. Go for two here. If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win. Gonna go for two here. Go for two here.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it.
Go for two here. If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win. Gonna go for two here.
He's going for two.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Got him! One-handed catch as he goes up and gets it. That's just a heavy play.
All right, boys are live. We're short one tonight because Chad is out looking for Antonio Brown somewhere, making sure that he got into his Uber okay. But you know, episode 97. This is the big one. This is the one we're counting down. Ben Roethlisberger's last home game at Heinz Field. I've definitely carved some time out in this towards the end for us to talk about it.
Sure.
Which is fine. But we'll lead off with, kind of where we're at, how things are going. How was your weekend? And how did your football Saturday, Sunday, New Year's, how did it all work out?
New Year's is great. I got to do a little celebration there, and Saturday was a nice, easy day around here. We didn't do too much, and then football Sunday. I mean, we'll talk about that later, of course, but all around 1:00 matchups. We were talking about in the chat. Great finishes right down to the very end. So that's what you want. The very end of the football season, you want games that matter. The schedule seems to have been played out that way. So I'm excited to see what Week 18 has in store. The first week 18 ever. So that's going to be fun, right?
Well, and look, I think that the league probably wanted there to be a little bit more intrigue going into the week. But unfortunately, the Cincinnati Bengals not only stole the division, but they also probably stole a little bit of money and gave us a nice donation towards our friends over at CoolBet, because I know that Chad and I had a pretty nice parlay going, and we hit all of them except for that one. We had them to win by 3. So based on that donation, obviously I was not super thrilled by the result. Overall, I think that it was a pretty good game. The Bengals might have shown a little bit more than what most people, I mean, present included, expected from them.
You're the president of the most people, right?
Yeah. Well, look, I think I think going into the playoffs, you still haven't jumped over that hurdle. Right now, where things are lining up, it's looking like it's going to be a Belichick versus Burrow playoff game, which will be interesting. But I'll give you the floor for a second, because you've been on this for a while.
Yeah,
I think that they took some shots and they panned out.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow, he showed up again in a big game. He had a great completion percentage, throwing touchdowns. He was mobile when he needed to be. The defense was certainly getting after the quarterback that they were early on in the season. I feel like the losses that they've had, there have been some miscues on Burrows in those games, but mainly it's been like their pass rush just kind of disappears in the games that they've lost. So it certainly showed up on the stage yesterday, on a 1:00 game on the stage. But like, I like what I see. I got, again, Burrows is going to take shots, and you got a wide receiver who man, the guy just makes adjustments. Like, it doesn't matter how big or how small you are, and that just proves it right there. We'll talk about obviously maybe down the road too, but another player that just knew how to make adjustments on the ball and go get the ball over top of a defender that may be 2 or 3 or maybe even 6 inches taller than he is. So that was a hell of a game. I mean, I don't know. He kind of put his mark on it, and probably like I don't know if Waddle was probably the leader, I guess, for offensive rookie of the year. But I think at this point you got to give it to Chase. I mean, that game after yesterday, when they needed a win, showing up on that stage, he was triple covered sometimes. We'll bring up the Chiefs there, and Sorensen. We talk about how good he's been. That wheel route that he blew, right? That was all on him, right? So, God, it was such a good game. Like I said, it was going to be a shootout, and it really, really was, right down to the wire, right?
Look, I think like they showed that they could win without a run game. That was obviously a positive. Joe Burrow can definitely take a sack. He's proven that time and again, but in that game he got hit a couple times pretty hard. Now, is there enough weapons again to make a Super Bowl run? That's probably not the team that they're at right now, but they can enjoy their division. They can enjoy their victory. It's made things a little bit tougher on the AFC playoff picture, but because of that win and because of another win by the Titans, that has eliminated a few teams from contention. One of which is the team that's playing the Steelers tonight, the Browns. The Dolphins win however many in a row, 7 in a row for the Dolphins, and 1 loss on the road, and they're out like this is BCS style.
Yeah, and I just want to bring the Browns there. What's fun for me with that one, I'm very petty with former players that act like dickheads. Like, Kyrie Irving, that I'm never going to say anything good about that guy again because he's a good ball handler. Jadeveon Clowney's another of those players. He left, and the first thing he said about getting to the Browns, like, "Oh, you guys had 12 wins this year, right? It's more than the team I had last year that I was on." Now what's happening now, Jadeveon? You didn't play half the season again, and you're on the bench, or not on the bench, but you're going to be sitting on the sidelines again as everybody else is playing in the playoffs. Give me a break.
Right, and whether it's injury for that guy or playing on shitty teams, he's just he's not the guy you want in the locker room. He's not the guy that's been drawing the wins. So that is his own thing. But big news for the Titans. It looks like Derrick Henry's back on the field at practice.
The king
opening his
is
window.
returning. Yeah.
So provided they can hang on to this number 1 seed that they've reclaimed, things are probably a little bit scarier going into into the playoffs here. If the Titans can get their real Derrick Henry back and have Foreman as a 1-2, that's scary.
It is scary. And then honestly, Dante Hilliard has done enough, I think, at this point to stay on the team. And McNichols can't go anywhere. His pass blocking is amazing. We need to keep him on there. He's a third down back for that reason. But Hilliard can definitely be that scat back. It's going to muddle. Like, Pruitt going down is a huge loss for us. He's a third down converter, and he's a yak type of tight end. But him going down might be a blessing because his roster spot can now be taken up by one of those running backs. We might actually run with 4 running backs. Most teams wouldn't do that in 2021, 2022 almost, or 20 now. Sorry.
But it is 2022.
Yeah. The season flipped now. But the Titans certainly should, and be able to have Foreman, which is like mini Henry. And the guy has, definitely opened up his career again next year. He's going to have some contract offers, right? So that's going to be good for him. Pick the right team to come back to.
If I was Foreman, I mean, I would look at trying to be the 1-2 for somebody else. It might be something where the Titans bring him in again and say, look, we're going to give you a few more carries because we don't want to be in this position down the stretch without Derrick Henry again, because you might not have another Dante Foreman or Hilliard or any of these other guys. And there's not a lot of teams that can rebound. Like, if the Colts lost Taylor right now, they're a write-off. They're toast.
Yeah, I don't know if Naeem Heinz is enough to carry the load there. They'd have to bring the guy that they've buried to the scratch list every week, Marlon Mack, back onto the team again. And I don't think that's going to happen. So,
no, and there's no way. The Dolphins did what they could to fight themselves back into this, but you did say they weren't a real contender. We wanted to believe it because it makes it a little bit more fun. But at the end of the day, the Dolphins were who we thought they were.
Did you watch the game?
I didn't. I was watching the Kansas City game and the Ravens game.
I mean, it's unfortunate for Tua because the weather certainly played a factor. Like, the fumble was one. Like, there was 2 bad fumbles. One was they ended up getting it back, but the fumble that we ended up recovering and ended up scoring off of, like there was a lot of those little miscues because of the weather, I think, which unfortunately we've talked to hasn't really played a whole lot of cold weather games. So outside of playing in divisional type of opponents, I went to the, I'm big on the Reddit, so I went to the subreddit of the Dolphins after to see what the vibe is over there among the fans there. And man, he is everybody done with him. Like there's not a single fan that was in his corner from what I was reading. There was like over 30 posts, and every post had some sort of, dozen or so comments about Tua, um, adding on to the list about how he needs to be gone and they need to focus on a quarterback and an offensive line and do what they can with the draft picks they have. And it's unfortunate. Again, the weather just played a major factor there. And some players, they have to play in it to experience it and then grow from it. I do think that, like, watching the press conference after, Tua certainly looks defeated. Like, and the press, I'll be real, man. The press in Miami is rough. Like, they just kept asking negative after negative question. And there's not going to be a whole lot of positive when you get your ass kicked like they did. But there's got to be something that you got to ask the kid sometime. Like, do you see growth maybe? Versus just like, everything they ask him is just, why did you fail here? And why are you looking
Yeah,
bad here? Where's the execution off on here? It was bad. It was stack on stack for sure.
and look, they just rhymed off 7 in a row. So I mean, Flores is safe. I would be shocked if there was a different quarterback suiting up for them week 1, barring injury.
Mm-hmm.
And
They can grow off the
Tua's,
defense, right? Like that's again,
yeah,
opportunistic defense. They didn't get sacks yesterday, unfortunately, but they play fucking hard, man. They get to the quarterback, they run to the ball. Losing what is that 52 Landon Roberts, like they lost him to an injury. That's tough. Like that's their leader. So I mean that was a big loss for them on defense. And I think that's when we were really able to get the runs up the middle.
yeah, right. And you know what? They, I don't know. That's probably enough we need to hear about the Dolphins. The Titans seems like they're going to be in the conversation for a little bit longer. I would imagine that they're going to rest the boys if they can. I didn't see how the schedule lines up for them next week. If
Texans,
they got
Houston, man.
no, but I mean like where their schedule is actually being. Are they paired up with like Kansas City and some of these other teams to know where they're at?
Like going into the game kind of thing.
Right, right.
Oh, I don't know that actually. Everybody that's big is at 1:00, is it not? And there's only the one at night. The Dallas game got flexed, right? I'm pretty sure.
The Dallas game is going to be Saturday night, and I thought that the Chiefs and the Broncos were going to be Saturday afternoon. And as far as the evening game
right
on Sunday, it's the AFC West game. So
I mean,
I just didn't know. I didn't know if the Bills and the Patriots and the Titans would all be at 1:00.
It does look that way, yeah. So and they're not going to know. The Chiefs were the only team that I think they'll be playing late that would actually know what's going to happen to them. Actually,
Right.
the
So
Bills are at 4 too. Actually, sorry.
I don't know who the backup quarterback is for Tennessee, but he might see a little bit of he might see some reps. Never even heard that name before in my life, so
Yeah.
hopefully those reps are because of rest and not because of some kind of stupid injury in a Week 18 game.
Mm-hmm.
What about the bounce back by the Chargers?
Well, jeez. I mean, that was
That's still a division opponent. That's a tough
Yeah.
defense. They scored some points.
Yeah, no, hey, listen, I'm big on division games, so it's a big win for them. When I was going all gee gosh is because we just got off the Dolphins and like that was just like another uppercut to them, right? They just had to wait a few more hours just to get slapped in the face one more time.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the Chargers, I've liked them all year long. Their big problem is that they cannot stop the run. And they're certainly one dimensional if Derwin James isn't in the lineup. And he's been hurt more than not sometimes this year, it seems, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love Justin Herbert. I just don't know again if there's enough on offense there that can really do anything in the AFC. Like I was actually having this with a group earlier today. You guys have said it earlier this year that you feel the NFC is stronger than the AFC. Like I really only think at this point, especially with the way that unfortunately that the rosters have kind of fallen apart for the Bucks, like you've really only got two strong teams in the NFC that I'm like, those are the teams that like nobody wants to play that are really strong. In the AFC, it's like any like 1 through 6 are contenders. Any one of those guys can mess something up in the playoff picture. And if they got far enough, could certainly contend against the NFC teams, except for maybe Green Bay. I mean, they're the only team that anybody should be really scared about. But yeah, I think it's really the AFC is really just so strong, man, from top to bottom across the board, defense, offense, And it's not just a pass heavy conference either. Like they're just really well balanced, I feel.
The problem that and you're talking about the AFC. The problem in the AFC is there's no like there's no standout beyond like even Tennessee, like they're the one seed, but they haven't been as dominant as Green Bay has been for the entire season. You look at a team like the Colts who have had a pretty good run here. They were 1-4. They got themselves back in it, but they're two wins by Ben Roethlisberger and one loss to the Jaguars away from not making the playoffs at all.
Okay, well, and that's okay. So Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers, right? Like they've been a team. The AFC North has been a pretty tough division. So somebody did say something similar to you today, and my counter to that was, okay, pick any one of those teams, 1 through 5, if you wanted to, and park them in the NFC. Would they be coming out of the NFC with a better record than they have right now, like being able to play NFC opponents? I really do think they would. It's the fact they've had to line up against such very tough AFC opponent teams, unfortunately, that are just that much better than they are, that they've taken those losses. It is the NFC, I feel, has just got a lot of teams you can kind of pick wins at from here and there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess if you were looking at if you were just lining up 1 seed, 1 seed, 2 seed, 2 seed, like if you want to call Tennessee and Green Bay a wash, I understand, but I think that Green Bay is probably
I said they're the best. Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
But the number 2 versus number 2, the Chiefs versus the Rams. I mean, you're giving that to the Chiefs. And number 3 would be the Bills versus who's the number 3 on the other side? The Cowboys?
Yeah. No, Cardinals, wouldn't it be?
No, the Cardinals are the 5 right now. No, the Bucks. Sorry, the Bucks.
Bucks, yes,
So if
okay.
you're looking at the Bills versus the Bucks, at this point you're probably looking at the Bills, and then if you're looking at the Bengals versus the Cowboys, that's a pretty good game. But I think that most people would probably side with the Bengals. I mean, 3 out of 4 if they were just going head to head in the same seed. Maybe you're right. Maybe the AFC is stronger than we've given credit for, and we put too much attention onto records.
And like the other thing too is like we were talking before weather in the NFC, right? There's only Green Bay that has the really shitty weather over there. In the AFC, there's quite a few teams that you're going to be dealing with crap weather, and that's something that they've already had to put up with a few times this year already, and they're going to be ready for it in the playoffs. So thankfully, the NFC doesn't have to go to the AFC in the playoffs, but
Yeah.
the AFC certainly is going to be weather torn by the time they get to that conference final or that final, right?
Yeah, I would rather go to Nashville on January 30th than Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, uh, I don't know. It's been a wild one. It's been a week where we have watched maybe one of the most talented receivers in our generation just decide that he was going to quit football in the middle of a game. I messaged our group chat and I told you guys that he was full out stripping in the end zone and he was throwing his uniform around. I wasn't watching the game, so I didn't see the sound on it, but I just assumed based on this man's track record that it was time for him to be done in Tampa. Uh, I don't think that there's another stop for him. Talent usually ends up finding a place to go. This guy has broken his last straw. This whole year has been a wild one for him. From refusing to pay for a chef to getting that chef to out him for not having a proper vaccine passport. And then now Tom Brady invites him to live in his house and he walks off the field because he doesn't want to play. I'm sure there's more to it. Obviously, this guy is not well mentally. But what we're going to focus on is the football aspect of it because I've never seen anything like this before. And
Yeah.
I messaged you and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? And it was pretty wild.
I mean, well, the only other person who's done something like that was Vontae Davis, who retired at halftime.
He at least had the courtesy to do it in the locker room.
And yeah, at least to tell the coach properly rather than flipping him off. And like what I really would just love to have been a fly on the shoulder pad of Mike Evans is what he was trying to say to Antonio Brown when that was all going down. Like, listen, the guy, you're right, hasn't been right since Burfict's hit. I feel terrible for him. Obviously, something's not right with him. But you do have to just look at his college photo to think that there was something probably wrong with him back then too, with the grill he had on there back then. What does it do for the Bucs? I mean, that's a significant loss. Let's be real. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was when he came back, and they're down a man already. Mike Evans can still play. His hamstring didn't look like he was holding him up too much during the game, but he's definitely needed to lean on somebody like AB being there. But Tom Brady, like Tom Brady does, find somebody to fill the role, right?
This this playoff run is going to be a different one than last year, and it's easy to count out Tom Brady at this point because he's always gonna put us in our place, just like we don't count out Belichick, we don't count out Saban, but not every team is going to be the New York Jets, and not every team is going to allow you to throw a game-winning touchdown to a guy that didn't even put on a college football jersey. Something Grayson. I don't even know who he was. First I heard of him was during that game. So I'm worried about the Bucks in general. Uh, Worried that they do not have the firepower to keep up with, say what we will about Matt Stafford, fine, but they can't keep up with Aaron Rodgers. They can't keep up with the Rams. Their defense is way undermanned as far as it was to last year. And I think that team is, I'm not going to call them a one and done playoff team, but it wouldn't surprise me if they lost in the first round of the playoffs here to, I think that right now they're paired up with the Eagles.
And it's just unfortunate, like the way it went down for a receiver like Godwin in a franchise tag year to blow his knee out like that at the very end of the year when all the hype is going into the playoffs now. And then, we've just been talking about the mess, the clown that is AB acting like he is, and posted on Instagram and Twitter after. He sure was happy with them Twitter fingers right away, wasn't he?
Man, that guy standing outside of MetLife Stadium waiting for his Uber was unreal. Think of the person that took that picture. What a fantastic picture.
Right? Yeah. And then the thing I like that chauffeur guy that's doing, like, he's actually like a celebrity or sports figure chauffeur, that Uber guy that he got picked up by. But like, think about, I would, I don't know, I'm saying this as a guy who doesn't make any money. I'd pull up and be like, yeah, you're not a celebrity anymore. You're washed. Keep on driving, kind of thing. What a goofball, right? Sitting lean back like in the leather recliner in the chair of the car, just bragging. What's up, guys? Fucking idiot, man.
Well, I mean, the guy he's still got money for now, and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Well, and
I was
I like how
talking.
people were talking about like how he kissed away a million, or maybe it was because he wasn't getting the reps. And you had mentioned, and I had read about the injury, him being injured or something like that. I look at this guy as a guy that kissed away $30 million Raiders. This guy doesn't give two flying what's about money. At this point, he's made what he thinks he can make, and he's just going to go into the sunset his own way.
Yeah, I mean, he's more likely to have his own reality show in the off season and maybe moving forward than playing in the NFL again. But I don't know. The CFL is out there. The Argonauts will probably pick him up for sell some tickets next year when we can finally get people back in the stands. But I don't know, man. Right now, if I were to tell you going into Week 18 that Tom Brady would have lost two of his top three targets, Gronk looks like a shell of himself, and Le'Veon Bell's their only healthy running back, I think that you'd be like, oh, so they had a shitty year then. But
Well, what's
they're
crazy?
still
Going
the
to that week, that was going to that week 18. They don't have the opportunity. Like, they're pretty much seeded out to where they're going to be. They don't have the opportunity to take a week off because they're going to have so many new players on offense that they're going to have to play it like a live game. Maybe you have to do it till halftime or just after, but you're going to have to get those reps in, ready for playoffs,
yep.
right?
Yeah, and you got both your coaches that are interviewing for other positions elsewhere, and this. Look, it's gonna be a weird one. It's
Where
too
did
bad
the
that
defensive coordinator, Rashawn, what's his name again? Oh my God, what was his name? He was the coach of the Jets, right?
was it Vance Joseph or was he on the Cardinals?
No, that's the Cardinals. Yeah, I can't. What did you say? You got both of their coordinators. Who was the other
Oh,
coordinator?
it's Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles. Yeah,
Todd Bowles. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. I don't. We'll see how that all shakes out, but there just seems to, if anybody can bring in the focus, I guess it's Tom Brady. But your players are leaving, your coaches are interviewing for other spots, you're all banged up. We'll see how she goes. Tough to count them out.
Mm-hmm.
Inside that division, I will tell you one owner that has decided to count out his coach. The owner of the Carolina Panthers came out and said he is angry and embarrassed by the contract that he gave to Matt Rule only 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and sends him out to the field. And it's like, wow, man, could you not have just said that behind closed doors? And is this guy done?
Like, that's
Or are
the
they
thing.
going to pay him?
So that was just like a rumor, though, right? He hasn't actually admitted that he said this, of course, right? Like, it's got to be pretty shitty for Matt Rule because he just let go of the OC there too. Did he not recently? to try and take back over the reins again. Maybe he knew.
Yep.
Maybe he has heard this kind of going into it. But what are they? 2 years, 62 million so far, or something like that.
Yeah, he's paid him a lot of money, and look, they need a quarterback. Uh,
Y-
sit like I don't know what they're doing down there, but at one point in the game, Sam Darnold was 9 for 9, and they ran Cam Newton out there for a couple plays, and it just didn't make any sense. And then Darnold comes back in, and he just doesn't look like his head's in the game. It's not Baylor. It's not Temple. Like you can't just run quarterbacks on and off the field.
Yeah,
It's
and and Tepper's like a investment guy too. Like I can understand maybe why he's a little pissed off on his return on investment after 2 years. I get it, right?
oh yeah, the return on investment is embarrassing.
Yeah,
And if there's a landing spot for one of these veteran quarterbacks that comes free, which we're gonna have the entire summer to talk about, uh, that could be one of them because the owner really needs to make a splash here, or move on from his coach and just be done with it. But whatever they're gonna do, they are not in the playoff contention. They were a 3-0 team that's gonna finish probably 6-11 if they're lucky. But Cardinals got themselves back together. And
Kyler Murray,
another
Kyler Murray loves
receiver that you were
Texas, huh?
talking. What's that?
Kyler Murray loves Texas.
Yeah, that's crazy stats. And
Well,
another
Dallas, I think.
receiver that's going into free agency,
Mhm.
Michael Gallup,
Oh,
tears his ACL. So that's another guy that's going to be in for a tough offseason and see what comes out of it. But yeah, Kyler Murray, how many high school games did he win? It was like 42 or something like that.
yeah, I think it is a total of just under 60 total wins in Dallas.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
You know, bringing up Michael Gallup, like that guy that I feel really bad for him. There's been a few times that Chad has mentioned him not being a number two, proper number two. He's a number three kind of receiver. But when Dallas needs a spark or needs something, there's two guys they lean on a lot, and that's Tony Pollard. And then it's been they've done for a couple of years. They finally lean on him mostly this year. But then they've also leaned on Michael Gallup this year, like quite a bit. That he's been their spark player. Does he stick around after a blown knee? I don't know, Jerry. Man, you got a lot of receivers there in the stable, right? He's already got to figure out what he's going to do with Zeke because I really don't think Zeke's sticking around this year.
He's either taking a pay cut or he's getting cut for Zeke, and for Gallup, it really depends on how the offseason goes. If you can come back to an offense and get a 1-year deal and see what you can do with Dak for one more year, I get it. If teams out there have seen enough that you can go get like some kind of a decent contract coming off an ACL injury, I think it's going to be tough. But it's going to ultimately come down to what Jerry Jones is willing to spend, and if the cap goes up the way that it's supposed to, I think that they would easily give him a 1-year $9 million deal, right? Like that's what Schuster took this year. That's what T.Y. Hilton took this year. So I don't think that Gallup is the caliber of Schuster or Hilton, but he's as important to the offense as any of those guys would have been to their offense.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the ball there with the Cowboys, Shannon, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts, Trayvon Diggs? Like, what's he in the conversation for? Are we talking defensive player of the year here? What's going on? What do you think?
I don't think so because his stats they're just so skewed. I get the interceptions, and the interceptions is what's sexy, but he doesn't have anything else to back it up. He might finish third in defensive player of the year. He might not even get the most defensive player of the year votes on his team.
Yeah, there's Micah Parsons is amazing. There's a guy who's been banging the drum all year long about Trayvon Diggs, and then he put out this tweet today. I thought it was a pretty good stat line. He's given up 1,000 yards in coverage at the most in the NFL. 45% of receptions allowed go for first down or touchdowns. The fifth highest yards allowed per target, and tied for the most 15+ yard receptions allowed. He's saying, not joking. When I say interceptions just hide one of the worst quarterback seasons ever in history. I mean, that's when you talk about nearly 50%, half of the catches are for first downs or touchdowns. That's a glaring thing to me. For me, I don't care about your interceptions at this point. You're out of the defensive player of the year conversation at that point. Half of the plays that you're playing are getting thrown against, or you're going for touchdowns or first downs. That's not an MVP.
Yeah, right now, it's either TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, or Miles Garrett. And I'm sure that there's other names out there, but there hasn't been a lot of defensive splash statistical games over the last couple of weeks that has changed our mind on that. Parsons is making a lot of impact plays. I don't know if that comes into play. I don't even know who votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Probably the writers, but
I think
right,
it's writers and coaches. It's a mix. I think.
right now, if TJ gets a sack tonight and a sack on next week, I mean, he's definitely going to get it. It's going to put him around 20. So and he's got the fumbles and he's got the secondary stats to back it up. Now the Cardinals have figured themselves out a little bit. It seemed like they played a little bit better without James Conner, but more importantly in that division, Matt Stafford won a game that he needed to win.
Yeah.
They were losing that entire game. There's not many times
It
you
wasn't
can go on the
clean.
road,
I don't know if you
go on
watched.
the
Did you watch
road,
that
throw
game
a
at all?
pick six. I did. I watched that
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah,
you throw a pick six, throw another interception that looked horrible. And when you get the ball back at the end, it was just time to go down, and they went down and they scored. And he found a way to get OBJ involved, and that's what you need ultimately. If you get OBJ and Cup both at a high level, that's going to be a tough offense to stop.
Well, no, but to be fair, I mean, if I had named the players that they were going against on Baltimore's defense 7 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago and said this is who the Rams were going to play against, there was not a chance that you would have thought that game would have been that close. It shouldn't have had to come down to a final drive to win the game. This is again the Rams. Just who are they? They don't play above 500 teams very well, right? And the below 500 teams they seem to be bullying. Who are they at this point? Like I know you were. It really helped my case earlier when you talked about who the Rams were lining up as the number 2 seed there, and who they. I don't know if they would beat the Chiefs. I really don't. I mean, they got some crazy good defense, but at the same time, they got their defensive players smacking each other in the face. The star player hitting a teammate, right? So, I mean, I think that's just a one and done. But Jalen Ramsey, I believe that act to me, you were playing or talking above yourself, making an act like that. Can you imagine some leader on a team smacking a teammate like that? I don't care what the teammate did. Wait till you get to the sideline, have a strict conversation on the bench, right?
Right. And I mean, they're frustrated. Obviously, they got the win, so none of that stuff even gets pulled into like consideration when it all comes down to it, because nothing matters after you win.
If it wasn't for AB, I think that would have been the news story, though. If it wasn't for the AB thing, it would have been Jalen slapped his teammate.
Yeah, the AB thing is just an absolute circus. No, if anything came out of this that was decent for the AFC, we have a win and in scenario for Week 18, which is kind of nice between the Chargers and the Raiders. We'll probably go into that one a little bit more on Thursday. But we're going to have a little bit of send-off here. But the first send-off that we're talking about isn't the one that you're thinking. But it seems like Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll are kind of done in Seattle. At least one of the two are. So that was potentially their last home game together. And they sent it off in style. They scored a lot of points. Russ was out there playing pretty well. The defense stunk. And yeah, I don't think that I would have anticipated there to be about 75 points between the Seahawks and the Lions out there, but I think they sent it off in explosive style. And what do you like? Do you think that either one of those guys is back? Or
so I think Carroll is done. I think he's just old, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I just feel that like I do think his energy is not nearly as high on the sidelines as it has been in prior years, and I'm sure that having a down season like they've had isn't helping matters. But I think he's 70 years old, almost 71. Go hang out with your family. Go do your thing, or become a broadcaster if you really just want to be involved in the sport. But I don't think that that's his alley, and I just think that he's probably done. With Russell, I do think that I think he wants to stay in Seattle if they got the right people around him. Again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. He picked the OC, right? So maybe the OC doesn't leave, maybe the OC sticks around. But depending on who the new coach that comes into play, right? Maybe he stays. Maybe he has a say in that. Maybe it's a defensive coach and he just allows the coordinator to do whatever he wants on offense, kind of similar to how McVay handles his defense. We'll stay the same idea within the division. I don't know. Seattle, Russell's just known Seattle for so long I just think that
Mhm.
there's some things that there is some problems in the upper management as far as how they draft. You're we'll talk about your situation later, but the team can't let a player like Russell Wilson walk when they've already got a bad offensive line. The hardest things to replace on your team are going to be your offensive line, or I guess your edge rusher may be one of them, but offensive line and quarterback. You can spend decades looking for the proper lineup. You can maybe have a really good right tackle, maybe a really good left guard, and then the rest of them are shit, and you're still not going to be a good team. You just can't seem to get them to click at the right time. We talked about Aaron Rodgers. If you're going to leave Green Bay, you can't let these players walk. They're under contract. You got to tag them and use that power as much as you possibly can. And I don't obviously Russ wouldn't be happy with that, but I just think he sticks around if they allow the coach to if he gets the coach that he likes.
Yeah, and to me, like if we were looking at the Aaron Rodgers situation and the Russell Wilson situation, the Packers are in a better situation because they haven't mortgaged all their first round picks for a safety that doesn't cover. They they haven't traded away all their pieces or tried to overspend on things for nothing. They've stayed pat, and after watching the way that Aaron Rodgers has been, I think that he's got probably 2 more years left in the Packers, and that's it. I don't see him in another uniform now. But Russell Wilson, I think that he wants to be in a bigger market. I think it has something to do with Sierra probably wanting to be in a bigger market, and you know, he's just gonna fall into line. It's just gonna happen.
So where do you
So
think?
I think that she was hosting some New Year's show in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. So that wouldn't surprise me. Or the Giants wouldn't surprise me either.
Well, I mean, if it comes, it's obviously not going to be a straight release. They're not just going to cut this guy. But I think that
No,
you mentioned the draft picks that they've given up in order to get Jamal Adams. If a team can replace those, I mean, sky's the limit, I guess. For they'll obviously take that, even one first round pick. I think at this point in Russell's career.
look, the Giants have 2 first round picks, and they look like they're both going to be high picks.
But like that's the thing, like saying that, like that's when you said to go to a big market. I was wondering if you were going to name the Giants, and it's like if I can think of a team that might be the worst team in the league that is absolutely going nowhere, it's not the Lions. It actually might be the Giants. Like they are so bad. Offensive line, like that. I come back to that again. That team is so bad offensively.
Yeah, the Giants, I didn't write it down, but they have the worst record since they decided to bench Eli Manning. Uh, I believe it was Ben McAdoo was still the coach, but
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they decided to bench Eli Manning for Geno Smith, everything has been downhill since. There's been no looking up. Do they maybe ship off 2 first round picks and Daniel Jones to Seattle just to kind of scapegoat it? Like, is this a Rams and Lions trade of last year? Maybe. But we got
you
the
know,
whole offseason to worry about that thing.
yeah.
The Colts dropped one that was probably considered a heartbreaker. I think it was one that most
Depends on
people
who you
had.
ask.
Well, I think most people that were watching didn't give much of a chance to the Raiders,
Mm-mm.
uh, but the Raiders put themselves in a good position. They put themselves in a good position to win, and the Colts just didn't have it.
Yeah,
And I think that's their first loss this year when Taylor rushes for over 100.
you're right. You're right. You're right. It
So,
is.
and when it comes down to it, like I said, they are in a position where if the Steelers win their next 2 and the Colts have to go down to Duval and weird stuff happens down there, if they can't get it done on the road, they're going to be sitting at home watching Wild Card Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And
a team that we easily could have won the division if a bounce went this way or that way.
And you know that I've kind of commented some nice things about the Raiders, mainly because of our boy Ricky. I always want
Yeah.
to put some good mojo that way. But like honestly, and I like Derek Carr a little bit, but these are the games that he wins that are going to keep that team in mediocrity for a very long time. They're just going to keep Derek Carr around for games like those, wins like that, right, where they could just get themselves into the playoffs. That's a team. Unfortunately, we were talking earlier about the teams 1 through 5. That might be team 6 or 7. Unfortunately for me, that I look at that list and I go, I'm not scared about playing them in the playoffs. Nothing about them scares me right now. Especially now they just
Right.
got another player that's just got picked up on a DUI, so they're gonna lose another player for the playoffs probably.
Right. Well, I don't think anyone's really scared by those guys. as well as I don't think anyone's really scared by New Orleans, but it's pretty wild to imagine that they've started 4 separate quarterbacks, and for some reason they're still in this playoff hunt. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen for them to make the playoffs, but I mean, kudos to Sean Payton for being there. He's not going to get any votes for it, but Coach of the Year, he should get at least 1 or 2 votes for that. Just if you can finish at 9-8 with all the quarterback situation and all the turnover they've had. Michael Thomas, probably their best offensive player, hasn't even played a snap.
In like
I
what,
guess,
2 years?
I guess, yeah. In basically 2 years, you lost your franchise quarterback. You've hung around here, and they're whatever. They're a non-starter for me. Like, there's not even a conversation to be had. But good for them for sticking around this long. I didn't think that they would have it in them, and I thought that they were going to fall apart once Jameis went down.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a little bit of Green Bay to talk about, and then we're going to go right into the Steelers because I'm going to spend a lot of time to talk about the Steelers here, and I don't give a fuck because he's been the quarterback for 18 years, and he's created a lot of memories for both of us. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But the road to the NFC Championship is going to be a very cold one. And I think that anybody that watched the game last night saw how freaking cold it was. Aaron Rodgers was not phased. Their offense apparently is the only offense that can throw and act like that in that kind of weather. So is there any way that the Packers are stumbling here? I mean, they're the first overall seed. It's not a big deal. But is there any of these teams that can make them stumble at home this year in the playoffs?
I don't know, like the Bakhtiari. Did he play yesterday? I didn't even notice that if he did or not.
No.
He was on the 1-9, right? And they were still pretty dominant. That 1-2 punch they have with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, that's really nice to have walking into the playoffs with. I don't think there is anybody because unfortunately Rodgers is finally able to click with every one of those wide receivers. He doesn't just have to go to Devontae Adams, even though he's got 900 yards more than the next closest receiver on the team. That's almost like that's 1,000 yards, Shane. That's ridiculous. They know where it's going and they still can't do anything about it, right?
Well, and that's they were
God.
showing all the throws that were going up, and Adams has got his hands on his hips, and then last second he just fires up. And as a DB, you want to read the guy's body language. If you can't even read his body language, you're fucked. You're done for.
And you're not supposed to be able to catch the ball like that when it's cold, man. You're supposed to have a couple of drops. There's concrete hands, right? Cement hands. Devontae just doesn't have those, unfortunately, for the opposing team.
Do you have it? Like, do you have a team that you think could be like, or is this going to be Green Bay in the Super Bowl?
A scary team for me is when a team decides to start clicking is a team like Dallas. I made fun of Trayvon Diggs earlier, but when Trayvon Diggs decides to have a game, when the team plays and their defense can play and get to the quarterback, and they got a great linebacking core there right now. When Dak Prescott can play, those are two teams that can play against each other. They can match up really, really well. Does Dallas play in the winter well? I don't know. I mean, I could be just talking or hyping that up more than I really need to be. But I do think that Dallas is a team that could certainly make some noise and take a backdoor way to get to Green Bay. Take some weak teams off and get there.
I got a scary team that if they click well, they're hard to beat, and it's the 49ers.
Okay.
They have to win to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing's clinched for them. But
are you okay with with Jimmy's injury?
Well, I think that the only way that they're going to beat Green Bay, and the way to beat Green Bay, is to do exactly what Belichick and Mac Jones did to the Bills in the cold weather. And if Trey Lance can throw the ball 4 times, and between him and all those running backs, they can figure out a way to cough up 200, 250 yards, you could put Green Bay on its heels. But I don't think there's any way. I mean, when you got a battering ram like AJ Dillon, you have what is probably going to be the back-to-back MVP in Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, who's, I don't know. If he's not the best receiver in the league, he's 1B. But hard to put anybody ahead of him.
Well, and then Rodgers, I mean, if they've already got everything locked up, he may not play next week, right? He may not play.
He's definitely not playing next week. Yeah.
So if he's not playing, then I mean, I know we talked about might be the MVP. This got to be Jonathan Taylor's week to make some noise. Then I mean, they need him to obviously get in, but like I really got hope for this guy. And I don't cheer for Colts. It's just because it's a running back. I think that I'm cheering for here. but he's got to make some noise to chase that MVP noise that you're talking with Rodgers too.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think that he's still in the discussion. He's probably going to finish second, but
And
I
also,
don't
like after yesterday's game too, let's also remember that Zadarius Smith has not played in a few weeks. He did not play
Mhm.
yesterday either, and that guy is Rashawn Gary is no slouch. I know you don't want to say too many high things about him because he's from Michigan, but their edge rushers certainly have played well in Zadarius Smith's absence. But when he is going to be there for the playoffs, shit, that's going to be
Yeah.
scary, right?
But yeah, and that's it. And this team is they're on a freight train. Matt LaFleur is the winningest coach in the first 3 years. They
Thanks,
have all the
A-Rod.
accolades. Yeah, they've done everything that needs to be done except for win the big game, and that's generally going to be that NFC Championship game that they need to get over the hump on. And I don't know, any Super Bowl that Aaron Rodgers is in, I think is probably going to be a pretty good one. And if you got Aaron Rodgers playing in the Super Bowl and Snoop Dogg and Eminem and Dr. Dre at halftime, I, yeah, you're tuning in. There's something to watch there.
Yeah, I bet. It's gonna be a good halftime show. I
Uh,
totally forgot they were rocking it out this year.
yeah, and Mary J. Blige is going to be there. It's going to be wild.
All right.
All right, let's just get into it. We're going to talk about it.
Uh-oh.
I have lots
Do you
of
have your
stuff.
tissues beside you?
Look, this is going to be a difficult one. And the first question I want to ask you is, in your sports career, can you remember a moment like this for yourself?
For me, okay, so he unfortunately didn't retire like this, but when Paul Pierce left the Celtics, it was pretty big for me. That
Mhm.
was a pretty big hit. But no. And you know, I'm gonna be very transparent for you here, Shane. Okay. I was saying to my lovely wife the other day, I was talking about how I'm actually half excited to see what the Steelers are going to do because, as I mentioned 10 minutes ago, the hardest thing to replace is your offensive line and your quarterback. And you guys have been chasing your offensive line for a few years now. And you very well may be chasing a quarterback here for the next. I think you're going to be good enough for the next few years that you fall out of those, you know, the top 20 or top 15 quarterbacks that are really, really good. But I'm interested. And then she's like, well, you know, I don't understand why Shane's like so upset about it. And I said, well, he's played like 18, 19 years with the team. And then she even was like, what? Like, really? Like, she didn't even,
Yeah.
like, that's when she was kind of like, oh, I get it. So, yes, we get it here at the Sigsworth household, Shane. I've not had anything close to this on the Titans outside of maybe when Keith Bullock left us. But yeah,
Yeah.
man,
Well,
take the floor. Let me know how it feels.
I was thinking for you, like maybe Martin Brodeur,
Oh, that one hit home.
or like a Canadians fan losing Patrick Waugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different like parallels you can draw. I'm happy, and I guess this isn't a fact yet, but I'm happy that he's not going out the way that Brett Favre went out, or Philip Rivers went out, or some of these other guys that have gone to other teams and looked washed. If you're gonna be washed in your own uniform. Like be your franchise guy and show how loyal of a franchise you've played for. That did he have any business being the quarterback this year? Maybe, probably not. But if he hadn't done everything already for them, would they have done it? Absolutely not. They went out of their way. They worked out an extension for him. They found a way to bring him back because he didn't want the last thing that he did as a Pittsburgh Steeler is lose a playoff game to Cleveland. Oh, and guess who they play tonight on Monday Night Football? The Cleveland Browns. Because this is poetic justice. I'm willing to stake my life on the fact that they're not losing this game tonight. And there's a lot, there's a lot of different reasons why they're not going to lose it. But next week against the Ravens, I'm not even sure if I care. I don't think that they're making the playoffs. I really don't think that I'm not cheering for the Steelers to make the playoffs to go play Kansas City again. That's not how I want Ben Roethlisberger to be remembered. This is what I want tonight. I want them to be up about 14, 17 points with 2 minutes left, and they get the ball back, and he comes out for one snap just so that he can leave the field and get his curtain call that he deserves. And I think that that would be the absolute best possible moment and the best possible way that he could end his career.
Well, I got to play devil's advocate because I got to be the other side on this show, right? I think we mentioned, I can't remember the team we were talking about last week, but we were talking about a team that doesn't have anything to lose anymore. the way into the game, so they can be spoiler on here. And I mean, the Browns, this is kind of like a mini Super Bowl for them or a mini something for them because obviously they know how big and important this game is, but they don't have anything to lose, really, right? I think
They don't have
the only
anything to gain either.
outside of being, oh,
And
come on.
look,
The same
if
reason that he came back and didn't want the Browns to or the memory that you were talking about the Browns being the loss or whatever. He doesn't want, or the Browns don't want the last memory of Ben Roethlisberger walking up a Heinz Field being a win against them either.
do you know how many games against the Browns Ben Roethlisberger has lost? It's gonna be
12.
really easy. No,
How many?
2.
Wow.
Yeah, in his whole fucking life, 2. So let's not pretend. Yeah, let's get it all out here right now. There is no way that he loses this game. There's a way that the team loses it for him, but I'll be shocked if he doesn't throw for 300 yards. I'll be shocked if he doesn't throw for 2 or 3 touchdowns tonight and do everything vintage Big Ben, the guy that has signed up for 163 wins in his career, which is 5th all time.
So is this going to be
64,000 passing yards,
is this
which again, 5th all time.
beginning to end? He's going to be darting out there, or is it going to be after halftime? Is he going to go into halftime with like 93 yards and come out of the game with 480?
No, this man has so much Toradol in his body that he doesn't even feel himself right now. Like this is the thing. Like I'm not even exaggerating. Win or lose, I wouldn't be surprised if this is it. Like he might not play next week in Baltimore because this is the way that he wants to go out. He doesn't want his last game to be laying on his back at M&T Bank Stadium.
It'd be really nice if they had a corn maze or a cornfield in the tunnel so that he could walk off the field into the corn maze like Field of Dreams, just disappear.
Yeah, that would be wild. But I'm telling you, like the moment that I'm looking for is the curtain call. I want him to get it. I think that he deserves it. Not many people stick around with one franchise for 18 years, and I guess to you, I would say after tonight or after next Sunday, what will Ben Roethlisberger be remembered as by you?
A thorn in my side.
He does
'Cause he
have a
was-
good record against the Titans because I wrote
Yeah.
it down just in case you were being a dick tonight.
Yeah. So the thorn in my side and Shane's ammo. That's how I'm always going to refer to Ben Roethlisberger. Always had the ammo to use against me with Ben, and how good of a thrower he was. How he was a fighter. I mean, he fought every down. I mean, he was banged up a lot, even when he got slow in his old age, and he took those big hits to come back. Some people will look at this year and say he shouldn't have come back. He should have walked off into the sunset kind of thing after last season because he didn't give his all to or not give his all, but didn't really give a lot to the team last year. I think you're right. I think he needed to do one more year with the team on his terms and see what he can do. Unfortunately, Juju going down, I think, was a big derailment for your team offensively. I think this would have been a different year for them if he was still around, unfortunately. But Ben's a good player, man. He's a fighter, and he did a hell of a lot more than anybody thought he was going to do coming into the league out of Miami of Ohio.
Right. Since he's come in, all he's done is win. He actually won his first 13 starts, back-to-back AFC championships to go into to start a career. Lost the first one against a guy named Tom Brady, who's pretty good. Tom Brady's actually the only person to beat Ben Roethlisberger in an AFC championship game, which I think Tom Brady's beaten a lot of people in AFC championship games. So the question, I actually had this for Chad, and Chad's out looking for Antonio Brown, but I'll ask you, if you weren't Tom Brady and you weren't Peyton Manning in this era, what quarterback would you want to be? Take their career.
Oh, that's a good one. What quarterback would I want to be? Ben sounds really, really, really nice, but I would even take Russell Wilson's career up until now. Those are the only two you can really think about. Successful. They're both successful. They both ran the division for some time. They both got to show off their talents and do their thing and air it out. So that Ben's very He's a pretty good quarterback, man.
Yeah, like I said, after this year, he will be in the top 5 in passing yards, top 5 in uh, wins, which obviously can be a skewed stat depending on how good your team is. But he's been in a situation where he's the only quarterback to throw back-to-back 6 touchdown games. He is tied with Tom Brady for the most come from behind victories in NFL history, which is 50, which is pretty wild to think.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to playoff wins, again, he's third in playoff wins with, we exclude Tom Brady from every conversation because the guy's got 60 fucking playoff wins. But outside of Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, John Elway, Steve Young, and Terry Bradshaw are the only quarterbacks that have more playoff wins than Ben Roethlisberger.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So about 5 years ago, and we'll wrap it up here in a sec. About 5 years ago, Chad and I had a conversation on whether Roethlisberger was a Hall of Famer, and he's about to come out of the tunnel here, which is going to be a big one. And Chad's like, well, like maybe he's kind of like Ken Stabler in the Raiders. Like, no, that is such a disrespectful thing to say. And now I lay all these stats out, and after this game, he's gonna run through the tunnel and he's gonna run directly to Canton. There is a 0% chance this guy's not getting into the Hall of Fame first ballot. 0%.
First ballot, I think quarterbacks have a big advantage on the first ballot to get in, and that is going to certainly help us.
I will go burn the fucking place to the ground if this guy's not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Unfortunately, Rondale will still be looking for his chance again.
Yeah, that's a shot for Chad if he's out there watching.
And so I know you're not a super emotional guy, Shane. I can't really even think of a time that I saw you cry outside of like a drunken, well, I love you, Kalen kind of thing when we were 20 years old. But are you going to shed a tear tonight? Is this a big enough moment for you? I mean, this you're walking into the unknown at the end of the season, right? You don't know what's going to happen with the team offensively for the next 10 years potentially. And what's it going to be like, Shane?
Look, if everything goes the way that I'm saying and he gets the curtain call that I think that he deserves, I mean, I'm never going to admit to it, so you guys are probably going to have to ask Cheryl, but it's possible.
Will the kids be around? Are you going to get the kids around and centered on the couch? And guys, this is a big moment for Dad.
Look, I mean, they're a little young, so Ethan might be around. The girls will be in bed for sure, but look, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be a big one. And lost in all of this, there still is a playoff hope. So
yeah,
we'll keep that alive. And on that, we'll sign off. And I just hope he gets the curtain call that he deserves. I think it's the way it's going to end. Make sure that you check out the Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube, the Twitch. We're going to be getting out there active. We're going to try and get Kalen into a little Madden tournament that Liam found. And enjoy the game. And, if there's ever a Monday Night Football you don't want to miss, this is probably it.